Hello, students, teachers, parents, history nerds. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Nutshelled History, where we lay out the facts, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We continue with our Early Americas series by looking at colonial society. There's a fill in the blank worksheet that goes along with this video in the description below. All right, let's go. Though colonists enjoyed more social equality than people in England, class differences still existed. The gentry were the upper class of colonial society, which included wealthy planters, merchants, ministers, royal officials, and lawyers. So bougie. The middle class included three-quarters of the colonists. These were the small farmers who worked their own land, as well as skilled craft workers and some tradespeople. Land was plentiful in the colonies and easy to buy, and skilled work was in demand. The lower social classes included hired farmhands and indentured servants. Indentured servants were dudes and ladies that couldn't afford the trip across the Atlantic. Since they really wanted to head over to have a shot at some social mobility, they exchanged a certain number of years of free hard labor for someone who paid for their trip. If they survived, and that's a big if, they earned their freedom and some land. Far below them in status were enslaved Africans and African Americans. To note, the term African Americans is kind of an anachronism, considering no Africans in America could be considered American until the passage of the 14th Amendment, but it's just easiest to use that term. Anyways, most colonists survived by farming. Men did most of the farming work, while women often worked within the home. Women made all meals and cared for the children. They also made items such as candles, cheese, and clothes. They rocked, even though they had very little rights at the time. In the backcountry, there was less of a difference in men and women's roles. Women worked alongside men in the fields. In the cities, women sometimes worked outside the home. Some women learned trades. Men also worked in trades such as coopers or blacksmiths. Educated men also became politicians or pamphleteers. Enslaved Africans brought their cultural knowledge and traditions with them, including farming methods and languages. African craft workers used materials such as wood and silver to create designs that often reflected African styles. Enslaved Africans were sometimes, and I emphasize only sometimes, able to use earnings from sales to purchase their freedom. The populations of enslaved Africans and free African Americans varied from region to region. Colonists brought with them the artistic traditions of their homelands, but also incorporated new colonial styles. The wealthy purchased paintings and other decorative arts, including prints. They had to prove to everyone they could afford it. Literature also developed in the colonies. A popular form was the captivity tale, in which a white settler was captured by American Indians and had to overcome hardships to escape. Music reflected European traditions in many places, and enslaved Africans also brought musical traditions with them. These traditions were sometimes combined to form new musical types. Much of colonial music was tied to religious life. In the 1730s and 1740s, everybody woke up. A strong Christian movement called the Great Awakening swept through the colonies. Jonathan Edwards was a Massachusetts preacher who called on people to examine their lives. Remember, Massachusetts used to be super Puritan. The focus seemed to be fading. Other preachers, including George Whitefield, spread the ideas of the movement in outdoor meetings. The Great Awakening led to a rise of many new churches like the Methodists, the Baptists, and the Presbyterians. The new churches led to greater tolerance of various religions and reinforced democratic ideas. New England colonists were the most concerned about education and often combined it with religious instruction. You need to know how to read if you're going to read the Bible. So they passed laws requiring colonists to educate their children. Massachusetts set up the first public schools, which are schools supported by taxes. Schools in the middle colonies were private, so only wealthy children could afford to attend. In the South, wealthy planters hired private tutors or sent their sons to England for school. Enslaved African Americans received no education. Instead of a formal education, boys sometimes served as apprentices. An apprentice works with a master to learn a trade or craft. Only a few schools admitted girls. Dame schools or private schools run by women in their homes. Colleges also developed during the colonial period. The first American colleges mainly educated men to be church ministers. Later, colleges moved into other areas of education. First, we woke up. Now we have to find the light. The Enlightenment was a movement that began in Europe in the late 1600s. Enlightenment thinkers believed that all problems could be solved by human reason. They looked for natural laws that govern human behavior. English philosopher John Locke contributed some of the movement's key ideas. Enlightenment ideas spread among better educated colonists. Benjamin Franklin is an example of a colonist who embraced Enlightenment ideas. He wanted to use reason to improve the world around him. He gained worldwide fame for his inventions and public service. Colonial culture flourished in cities and towns. They were centers of business and trade, and they had their own theaters and newspapers. It wasn't as boring to be a colonist as it is learning about the colonists. The growth of newspapers led to debate over freedom of press, or the right of journalists to publish the truth without restriction or penalty. Publisher John Peter Zenger was arrested for printing articles that criticized the governor of New York. Zenger was accused of libel, which is publishing statements that damage a person's reputation. The jury found Zenger not guilty, however, because the articles were based on fact. Freedom of the press would become recognized as a basic American right. Okay, recap time. There were social classes in the British colonies. The gentry were on top. You had slaves and free African Americans on the bottom. You also had the lower class and the middle class. Most people were farmers back then, but there were craftsmen and other things. Colonists had some culture. There was music and literature and stuff. They seemed to be less focused on religion, so the Great Awakening woke them up and even created some new churches. Then the Enlightenment took them out of the darkness and into the light of reason. And news is free, unless it's fake news. That is the Colonial Society nutshell. Thanks for stopping by Nutshelled History. Don't forget to go nuts on the like and subscribe buttons. What would you want to do if you had to live in colonial America? Let us know in the comments down below.